how's it going? How are you doing? This weekend is so wickedly windy outside that it's about time I get you a bit of a seedlings update here in the greenhouse as well. And I'm also going to be re-sowing more because I've had a couple of total failures, and if anything, sometimes these failures actually make me more determined, but at the same time, just to give you an overview of what's been happening in here. Now this morning, actually, when I came into the greenhouse, I was a bit shocked how messy the place was. And yeah, I didn't think it would have gotten that out of hand for me. I also just needed to harvest the rocket and pak choi. Now the pak choi just went to the hens. They love it. They really like the taste of it. Both of them had started to flower by this stage, so there was no point holding on to it. But it was still possible to harvest leaves off the arugula, and that just is going to go into lovely peppery salad. And I also reduced the amount of lettuce that was growing because some of them was bolting. The others are totally fine, there's nothing wrong with them, but it just started to get quite dense, and it would be a just perfect breeding spot then for any kind of mold or slugs. Also, slugs are coming in then way quicker. And I also had this little volunteer potato. Now, luckily, by the look of the skin or the colour of the skin, I know it's the Desiree because that was the only red-skinned variety I was growing. And you see how tiny the potato itself was, where the whole new sprout is coming out. So I'm going to just pot it up because I don't want it to keep growing here in the greenhouse, and I'm going to pot it up exactly the same way as I did the Charlottes earlier. A bit of soil on the bottom of the pot, a bit of seaweed granules, and then I actually put a bit of chicken manure rather than blood, fish and bone into that. And I basically covered every bit of it with soil, but I just left a couple of leaves out because the tuber was so tiny. I wanted to make sure that a bit of light is at least reaching the leaves, and once it just settles and starts to regrow, I can knock the soil back from the sides on top of it and earth it up that way. But just because the tuber was so tiny, I'm just going to mind it a bit and give it a little bit more attention. But seedlings, I'll show you what's growing, what has failed for me, and then hopefully I can sow a bit more today. And then I have a lot of potting on or pricking out to do of tomatoes as well. I haven't done it yet, so hopefully I'll get all this done today. So starting with the first tray here, I've done a lot of sowings actually on 12th of March, and this lot here are all swede. Swede is a lovely cold weather crop, and I find that swede is beautiful roasted or actually with rice dishes as well. Then I have a bit of spring onion there. There is spinach. We have some calabrese here. Then I have a small tray of sorrel, so that would be a lovely flavor addition for the salads. Here are Brussels sprouts, and what I actually sowed this year was Dolores F1. I hope the F1 is going to be good for our climate in here. The F1s tend to be stronger, so we'll see how we get on with that. Now, the one thing during the last winter I was trying to observe to see what do we actually eat, what do I buy if we're on short of, or what kind of dishes am I actually cooking, just to see if I can support those dishes would say, with the food to grow. And one of the things was very evident that we're eating a lot of brassica food. Now, I know we eat a lot of carrots. We could easily be eating a kilo of carrots a week, and there's no way I can be growing that. Our just soil is not compatible for that. But luckily, the shops do sell organic carrots, so I can always subsidize carrots, so that's fine. But there are some plants that they just don't sell, and or it's such a short sort of time frame they sell it. So like the Brussels sprouts, it's only pre-Christmas, but we'd love to eat it after Christmas too, in January, February. So another thing was the purple sprouting broccoli. We love to eat that. Kale, we've been okay with kale, but the purple sprouting broccoli and Brussels sprouts, so they're the ones that I've creased this year, and I've sown more than hopefully that we'd need. I do have a full tray of shallots here waiting, plus I have more actually in the ground already since the last year. I never dug them up, so they're nearly becoming a bit perennial. But I just find shallots such an undervalued plant. And I think going forward, I'm not going to be sowing any more spring onions for the summer season, because we find we don't eat as much onion or the green tops part of it during the summer as much. And for the little that we do use, chives I find have way different flavor profile. We love that. Plus, you could actually just take a couple of the tops from each of shallots for the amount of spring onion we use. So my plan at the moment is that I'm going to be using spring onion for the winter season only, because obviously chives and shallots both die back for that, but it will then subsidize for the winter growing. So as I have here, these are all these spring onions were actually planted here last spring, and they've carried through the winter, and there's so much of it there. We'll never eat all of that, and they have a very strong flavor anyway, so you only need a little bit. And then from here onwards, I just have some strawberry plants, and there's agastache here, there for flowers. These are for the flower border. Now coming over to this side of the greenhouse, I actually have some volunteer chard in here, and I don't know how they got here. They must have come with soil. They're like a lovely little bunch of them, and there's rainbow chard which didn't survive outside, but they've all popped up in here. Yeah, so there's lovely red veined and there's pink veined ones, which the cold in December definitely took, as the white veined ones stayed. But yeah, don't know how they got here. I didn't have chard in the greenhouse, but I'm only thinking it could have come with soil, not soil actually, with the chicken bedding that I have underneath here. Then I have some herbs that I brought in for the winter, but I can see most of it has come out of their dormancy. There's purple sage here, pineapple sage. Now some of them are totally hardy, likes of the thyme here, but and I'll be actually planting these under the apple trees for my fruit tree guild, so this would be a new addition for that. But likes of this lemon mint did not survive. I do not see any bit of green growth on it. So the December colds did get it. Now I don't usually have that much water underneath of them. I just watered them properly today. That's really it. Because yeah, it's good to give them a real thorough soak as well from time to time, because there's plenty of days when I'm not here and the soil actually dries out. And there's a good example now to show you of seedlings should not happen, because you're going to kill them. I'm just going to skip over the sedum seedlings that I had taken for the green roof, because I want to come to this tray. And that's the tray that I had a bit of a panic about. So this tray is full of beetroot, a turnip and kohlrabi, but because the tray doesn't quite fit into, well, the seed tray doesn't fit quite into this bottom tray, there was a day where it was really warm and the temperatures just were going up too fast, so the tray, this part of it, so the kohlrabi side, was actually dried fully out. Now there's only a couple of them that have come back. The others are very wilted looking. Some of the turnips look okay, but it just isn't great when they dry out like that. And the beetroot really would want to be planted out now as well. You see it's starting to get a bit of pot bound, but because it's just so windy, I can't even go out there. The wind is just too cold, and just to prepare the beds and everything. So I just hope they'll survive one more week. Maybe it's better next weekend, so I just have to find the time. But yeah, otherwise plenty of root growth underneath and lovely leaves. And then I have a good tray of sprouting broccoli, purple sprouting broccoli, for next January, February. So it's so good to see them doing well and looking healthy. So 26th of February I've sown, there's leeks, there's a bit of spring onion, because I already had the seeds, so I used them up anyway, or I probably even have still more of it. But then I have a bulbous onion which is called Globo, and Malcolm from Allotments for Fun and Food, he was advocating for it, and I really want to test it out. Otherwise I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep growing onions. It's just we don't have enough space really for it. But yeah, I want to try the Global and see how that works for our field. Now we're coming to some failures. So these are supposed to be sweet peas. There's two varieties. One was Distant Horizon and the other one is Spencer Special. The Spencer Special came out okay, but even trying to walk with the tray now across the yard, the wind actually broke these, so I doubt they'll come back. But these were actually a couple of leftovers that I put into the last tray here, as otherwise that's Spencer Special as well, so I'm okay with that variety. You can see all of them really came up. There's still some that were a little bit later to come up, but at least they're there. As with the Distant Horizon, which should be much bigger variety, and the seeds even were bigger as well, there's very poor germination out of that. So I've actually gotten myself a second packet of the Spencer Special, and I'll sow not a lot of them, but this is a big disappointment. And I have plenty of Tagetes which should be pricked out. A lot of them, and they're going to be actually staying here in the greenhouse. I'm going to keep them with the tomatoes as the companion planting. I have more of them here as well. There's a couple of different varieties. Lovely, they've come up so well. And then out of the ones that need to be pricked out now, these are the tomatoes. They are well leggy, but it's just because they've been sitting in the kitchen window. But tomatoes are okay because they can be planted deep and they're going to create new root systems from their stems, so I don't worry too much about tomatoes. Once I just have to actually prick them out, and they need good soil, good quality soil to grow strong, so they're well overcrowded in these pots now. And I have some sweet peppers and basil, so basil also needs to be pricked out. Coming to the very last tray that I have here, and which has been the biggest disappointment, and I don't think it was my fault. Well, because the rest of the Brassica family plants have all come up, and I would have sown them the same way. So I should have had 2 rows of cauliflower here, which would have been all year round. I should have had 3 rows of spinach Emilia, then 2 rows of spinach Verdal, which is the only one that has come up, and then 2 rows of cabbage. And actually with Emilia there was a couple that came out quicker, and I was obviously able to break them out, so that's why the cells are empty there. But these were just a little bit slower to come up, so they just need to be potted up. The rest of them are all totally empty. But I do think that sometimes when you do get these failures, it can make you a little bit more determined to try to grow something. Now obviously I am going to be using the same seed packet, so it just could easily be that the seed packets, even though they're in the date and everything, it just perhaps weren't stored as well by the garden centre. You just don't know. They could have overcooked where they were stored, but yeah, no, they're all in date. So I'm going to take a chance and re-sow them. But this time I'm going to mix a bit more vermiculite. No, actually going to mix vermiculite into it, because the last time I didn't have it. But I'm going to be using the same size cell trays, and hopefully this time it will work. I finished the re-sowing of cabbage, cauliflower, and I've added celeriac to it because the timing for sowing celeriac is going to be over shortly. And I actually also multi-sowed rainbow radish. It's a new packet of seed I got, so I just popped it into module trays. And I was also able to prick out the tomato plants and pepper plants, so at least that's done. I still have tagetes to do and another pot of basil, but look, that's a job for another day. So thanks a million, and we'll see you next time.